On an ordinary night, a young man in his late 20s sat on his bed, with nothing visibly bothering him. He wasn't sick, hadn't lost his job, and wasn't going through a clear crisis. And yet, he felt an unbearable heaviness, constant tension, unexplained anxiety, and a silent fear that followed him every day. Suddenly, he spoke a strange sentence, one that seemed to come out of him without warning. "I can't live with myself anymore." He paused for a moment. Then a simple question came to his mind, one that changed everything. If I can't live with myself, then are there two of me? Who am I? And who is this self I can't live with? That was the beginning of a shift he couldn't quite explain in the moment, but something inside him changed. The fear disappeared, and a strange inner stillness took its place, as if a long battle had just ended. The next morning, he woke up seeing the world in a completely different way. His thoughts no longer had control over him, and he no longer felt trapped in an endless loop. He was simply present, seeing, hearing, breathing, without resistance. What he experienced that night wasn't just a passing moment. It was the beginning of a long journey toward a new understanding of life and of the self. A journey he later documented in a book that became one of the most influential works on human consciousness, The Power of Now, by the thinker and author Eckhart Tolle. This book doesn't promise new ideas, but rather awakens something ancient within you, something you once knew, then forgot. It's an invitation to pause, to observe the difference between you and your thoughts, between your true awareness and all that clouds it. And from here, our journey begins. Chapter by chapter, we rediscover our awareness and return to the simplest, deepest thing we have, the now. Chapter 1. You are not your mind. Imagine you're sitting alone, doing nothing, and suddenly your mind starts talking. It reminds you of an old mistake, worries you about the future, or judges someone or a situation. All of this happens automatically, and most of us believe that this inner voice is ourselves. But here, the author presents a shocking yet simple idea. What if your thoughts don't represent you? What if your mind is not who you are? This is the starting point of this chapter. We are not our minds. The mind, as the author explains, is a great tool, but it has overstepped its role. It has become the one in control instead of being in our service. And here lies the true suffering that people live with without realizing it. They don't notice that they are prisoners to an inner voice that never stops thinking, repeating, analyzing, and judging. The core idea on which everything else is built is this: human beings possess a deeper awareness than the mind. If you can observe your thoughts, then there must be something within you that is different from those thoughts, something that sees them without being a part of them. That something is awareness. The author isn't saying that thinking is wrong, nor is he asking you to stop using your mind, but he warns against complete identification with it, against living as if you are nothing but your thoughts, because that leaves you trapped in an endless loop of worry, judgment, regret, and expectation, things that prevent you from truly being alive in the present moment. He adds that the mind knows only one thing: time,
a past it keeps replaying, and a future it keeps worrying about. But the present, the mind sees no value in it. Yet the truth is, the present is the only thing that truly exists. It is life itself. And when you lose it, you lose everything. The experience Tolle proposes is not theoretical, but direct and simple. To begin observing your thoughts without getting caught up in them. To sit quietly, pay attention to what your mind is saying, and realize that what you hear inside is not necessarily you. With time and repetition, this distance between you and your thoughts begins to grow. And this is when a new state of awareness begins, a space, a stillness, a presence. This type of awareness doesn't require mental effort, only silence, a simple pause from chasing every thought. And in that silence, peace appears. This first chapter in this way is an invitation to a very simple but revolutionary step, to stop, to observe, to realize that you are not what goes on in your head. You are the quiet being who notices without being enslaved. And this is the beginning of the path to freedom, to the power of now.
Chapter 2. Consciousness, the way out of pain. Psychological pain doesn't come only from the outside. It's not always caused by circumstances, people, or the past. Often, it comes from within, from the way we think and how we interpret what happens. Here, the author draws our attention to an important point. Much of the pain we carry is because we don't live in the present moment, but rather we live in our heads, in endless thoughts. Every negative experience that isn't faced with awareness leaves a mark. And this mark doesn't fade easily. It accumulates. The author calls it the pain body, a buildup of old, undigested emotions. Sadness, anger, disappointment, rejection, all of it gathers over time. And this pain body doesn't disappear. It reactivates from time to time, feeding itself from new situations. When something happens that reminds you of an old wound, the pain body wakes up and takes control. And often you don't even realize that it's the one driving your emotions in that moment. But there's something crucial to understand. You cannot get rid of this pain by fighting it, ignoring it, or drowning in it. The only way out is to see it, to be conscious when it appears without becoming entangled in it. Consciousness is the light that reveals the pain and prevents it from taking over. In other words, when you notice that you're feeling angry, but don't sink into the anger, you begin to break the link between yourself and the pain. Tolle explains that pain cannot survive in the presence of awareness because, quite simply, it finds nothing to feed on. Awareness is not thinking or analysis. It is a silent presence, complete attention to the moment without judgment. And when you are fully present, the distance between you and life disappears, and much of the pain disappears with it. The author points out that awareness does not mean becoming cold or insensitive. In fact, it's the opposite. Awareness purifies emotion. It allows you to feel more clearly without becoming enslaved by what you feel. You don't deny the pain. You don't run from it. You embrace it with the light of your attention until it dissolves. And with every moment of awareness, no matter how brief, the pain body weakens. You become more free,
more connected to your true self, the self that doesn't suffer because it doesn't define itself through the past. In the end, this chapter does not call you to reject pain, but to observe it with awareness. Because the more aware you are of it, the less power it has over you. Awareness, then, is not just a way to escape pain. It is the only doorway out of it. Gently, without resistance, simply through full presence in the now.
Chapter 3. Going deeply into the present moment. In this chapter, the author takes us a step further. After understanding that awareness is the path out of pain, the next question arises: how can we actually live this awareness? How can we dive into the present moment, not as a concept, but as a living experience? Eckhart Tolle explains that most people live the now only on a surface level. We are physically present, but our minds are elsewhere, either in the past, analyzing and regretting, or in the future, planning and worrying. The present moment doesn't matter to the mind because it doesn't offer its stories to replay. But paradoxically, the present moment is the only thing that actually exists. Everything that happens can only happen now. Diving into the present doesn't mean canceling thought, nor does it mean living without plans or memories. It means relating to the present as life itself, not merely as a passage to something else. When you are in the now, the mind stops automatically, and in the moment it stops, a space appears, a space filled with ease, stillness, and pure awareness. The author invites us to experience this, not just understand it, to sit, observe your breath, notice your surroundings, and feel your presence, without interpreting or judging, to eat without thinking, to listen without analyzing, to walk without letting your mind run, to be fully in whatever you're doing, no matter how simple it seems. Diving into the now doesn't require ideal conditions or solitude. It can happen while you're washing dishes, listening to your child, or waiting in traffic. The key is full attention without resistance. But the author also points to a hidden obstacle: the mind's constant objection to the present moment. The mind always wants something different. It's too hot. That noise is annoying. This person needs to change. This shouldn't have happened to me. This objection is what creates daily suffering. But when you accept the present as it is, without conditions, resistance disappears, and with it, anxiety fades. And this is where transformation happens. You begin to feel that the present moment is not an empty space between past and future, but the true essence of existence. And the beauty is that presence is not only a way to peace, but also a gateway to inspiration, to intuition, and to real creativity. For the most beautiful things don't come from the overactive mind, but from a still space of awareness, from which answers arise effortlessly. By the end of this chapter, the message becomes clear. The diving into the now is not a withdrawal from life, but a return to it. And when you are fully present in the moment, you are freed from the burden of time and begin to see the world as it is, not as your thoughts tell you it is.
Chapter 4. The Mind's Strategies to Avoid the Present. Despite the simplicity of the idea presented in the book, that we live in the present moment, its application in real life seems difficult. The reason is that the mind has clever and refined strategies that make it constantly escape the present without us noticing. In this chapter, Tolle exposes these tricks and lays them bare before our awareness, because simply seeing them clearly causes them to lose their power over us. The first trick the mind uses is constant preoccupation with the future. We believe that we will only be okay once we reach a certain goal. When I finish this work, when I buy that thing, when I get married or succeed, or finally rest, as if the present moment is incomplete, unworthy of being lived, just a path to what comes next. An example of this: imagine someone taking a beautiful walk among the trees, but he doesn't see anything around him because he's thinking about tomorrow's presentation at work. He is physically in the forest, but internally he's in the office. The mind has stolen the moment from him. The second trick is living in the past, not as a passing reflection or memory, but as a constant immersion in old events. Why did he say that to me? If only I hadn't done that. That was unfair. I still carry it in my heart. People sometimes live inside events that happened years ago, as if they are happening now. And here the past is no longer just a memory. It becomes an identity we carry unconsciously. Like someone who missed a big opportunity in their youth and spends their whole life blaming themselves or others without noticing that the only moment they can actually change is now, not the time of failure. A third trick of the mind is creating ongoing internal conflict. The mind is not at ease unless it finds something to criticize. In yourself, in others, in circumstances. This is unfair. I don't deserve this. Things should be better. But all of this creates a resistance to the present, as if we are saying to life, I do not accept you as you are. And this resistance is the deep root of suffering. A simple example. You're standing in a long queue. Instead of acceptance, your mind begins, why don't they open another window? People don't respect time. I'm always in these situations. During these minutes, you're not suffering because of the queue itself, but because of your thoughts. The author is not saying to cancel the past or stop planning, but rather to use the past and future, not live in them. To be aware when thinking, not lost in thought. Here, Tolle offers simple exercises. When doing a daily task like washing your hands or drinking tea, try to do it with your full attention. Notice how your mind tries to distract you with a thought, an expectation, or a memory. Just observe it and return to the moment. Over time, you'll discover that the present is richer than you thought, and that the mind, despite its intelligence, often leads you away from real life. Awareness of these strategies doesn't mean fighting them, but simply noticing them as they are, then choosing presence over escape. And in this way, step by step, you become more present, more aware, and gradually free yourself from the traps of the mind that used to steal from you the only moment you truly have, now.
Chapter 5. The State of Presence. Imagine you're sitting quietly, not thinking about anything, not remembering anything, not planning anything. You're simply there, present. No worry, no resistance, no inner dialogue. This is what the author calls the state of presence. In this chapter, Tolle doesn't explain presence as a philosophical idea, but as a felt experience,
a state of being. It is that moment when you no longer need to think about life because you're simply living it fully. But what distinguishes this state from our ordinary daily moments? It all comes down to the inner quality of awareness. When you're present, you're not reacting automatically. You observe, you see clearly, you feel without being swallowed by the emotion. A simple example. You're in a conversation and the other person says something upsetting. The habitual mind responds automatically, defense, attack, or withdrawal. But when you're present, you watch the scene from within. You notice that a feeling of anger is rising, but instead of being the anger, you become the one who sees it. And in that space, freedom is born. Presence doesn't mean coldness or detachment from reality. Rather, it means becoming more aware, more sensitive, more connected to life as it is, not just as your mind interprets it. But entering the state of presence isn't like pressing a button. The mind, by its nature, resists it. It wants to stay busy, thinking, explaining, controlling. That's why Tolle offers a simple way to reach this state. Use your body as a bridge to presence. The body does not live in the past or the future. It is always now. When you place your attention on your hands or on your breath, or on the feeling of your feet against the ground, you move from the noise of the mind to the stillness of presence. A practical example. You're walking. Instead of being lost in your phone or your thoughts, focus on your steps, on the sensation in your feet, on the sound of the air, on your body's rhythm. Suddenly and spontaneously, you feel that you are present in a different way, not just as an idea of yourself, but as a conscious being, aware, connected to everything. Presence has a taste, an inner feeling of spaciousness and peace, even if you're in a crowded place, even if there's noise around you. Because presence does not require perfect conditions. It only requires attention. And with every moment like this, the mind recedes, and the true self emerges. Not the soul as a religious concept, but the deeper I beneath everything you think you are. In the end, Tolle clarifies that the state of presence is not a goal to reach, but our original nature that we have forgotten. It's not something new to learn, but something ancient we return to. Every moment you live in awareness opens the door. Every moment you forget the present closes it slightly. But the door never disappears because it is always now.
Chapter 6. The Inner Body. Have you ever felt that you live in your head more than in your body? That you're thinking all the time, but you don't really feel that you exist? This is exactly where this chapter comes in. Here, Tolle takes us into a deeper experience of presence to tell us the body is not just a machine that carries you, it is your gateway to the true self. In reality, most people see their bodies only from the outside, shape, weight, health. But few actually live the experience of the inner body as a field of living energy, as awareness breathing within you. When you dive into awareness of the inner body, you begin to realize something different. You are not just a physical body. You are consciousness that inhabits this body. And the moment you begin to feel the silent aliveness within, you are no longer someone who is thinking about the body, but someone who is present in it. A simple example. Close your eyes and focus only on your hands without moving them. After a few seconds, you'll begin to feel a faint sensation.
energy, warmth, a slight tingling. This is awareness of the inner body. You're touching your deeper existence not through thought, but through living sensation. Tolle says that entering the inner body is a shift from personality to being, from the surface to the essence, and this practice, though simple, brings about a profound transformation in your relationship with yourself. When you are connected to your inner body, your mind becomes quieter, your reactions slower but more conscious. You become less reactive and closer to your truth. And this connection has many effects. First, when facing stress, usually when we are angry or anxious, all of our awareness rises into the head. Thoughts, thoughts, thoughts. But when we return to the body, to the chest, the abdomen, the hands, we descend from the chaos of thinking into the calm of feeling. And change begins there. Second, in relationships, when you're present in your body, you truly listen to the other person. You see their emotions without projecting your own onto them, and you respond from a place of awareness, not from an old wound. Third, in true spirituality, many people seek spirituality outside the body, in meditations, texts, or rituals. But Tolle says, the spirit resides here, in your body, now. Connecting with it doesn't require a distant journey, but rather a close dive inward. Yet he points to something important. This practice does not mean detaching from the world or becoming disconnected from your emotions. It means living these emotions from a wider space, from a conscious presence. To grieve, but without drowning in grief. To be angry, but without harming or destroying. In the end, the inner body is not just a tool, it is the temple in which your soul dwells. And every moment you return to this body with a living sense, you come closer to yourself and become freer from the illusion of the mind. And thus presence becomes not an idea to be learned, but an experience to be lived from within.
Chapter 7. Gateways to the Unmanifested. In the previous chapters, we learned that presence is the key to freeing ourselves from the mind's pain, and that the inner body is a bridge to the present moment. But in this chapter, Tolle takes us a step deeper, beyond form, beyond body and thought, into the unmanifested, that quiet, hidden dimension which we cannot see, but which is always at our core. But what is this unmanifested? It is not something we can see with the eyes or describe fully in words. Rather, it is the original state of being, the stillness that precedes everything and continues in the background of everything. Tolle refers to it in various ways: pure awareness, essence, spirit, eternity. But he insists that we not get attached to words, for they are just pointers. What matters is not the term, but the experience. So how do we access this unmanifested? Tolle says there are 3 gateways through which anyone can enter this deeper state of awareness. Number 1, silence. Not just external silence, but inner silence. When thought pauses, even for a moment, when the voices in your head fade, you suddenly find yourself in a quiet, clear, still space. Imagine that moment after anger or crying, a moment of stillness, as if everything has stopped. That is the gateway to the unmanifested. In that emptiness, there is no I thinking or judging, only awareness, witnessing. That's why many meditation practices focus on observing the space between thoughts, because you are not your thoughts, you are the space in which those thoughts appear.
Number 2, full presence. When you're completely present in the moment, without resistance, without commentary, you open a window to that deeper dimension. Example, you're watching the sunset and you're not thinking about anything. You're not analyzing the colors, not taking a photo, not saying anything. You're simply watching and melting into the scene. In that moment, there is no separation between you and life, and in that, the unmanifested appears. Number 3, sensing the inner body. As we discussed earlier, the inner body is a silent gateway. And when you deepen your awareness of the aliveness within your body, especially in places like the chest, the abdomen, the hands, you begin to realize that you are something greater than the body, and yet you deeply inhabit it. Through this sensation, you can go beyond your form and enter the essence of who you are. These 3 gateways are not new ideas. They exist in every spiritual tradition, in the silence of the mystics, in the focus of the yogis, in the meditations of the monks. But Tolle makes them practical and accessible now in daily life. The key here is that the unmanifested is not something you will reach later. It is something you touch when the noise of thinking and personality disappears. And Tolle reminds us, in your true nature, you are the unmanifested, not your body, not your story, not your thoughts. In the end, this chapter does not call us to escape the world, but to see it from a deeper depth, from a dimension that never disappears, though it is easily forgotten. And the more often you pass through one of these gateways, the less you speak, the more you understand, the less you think, the more you feel, the more the person fades and the pure awareness shines through. And from this place, a freedom begins to unfold, a freedom the Chapter 8, Enlightened Relationships. In this chapter, Tolle places us before a profound question. Can relationships be a path to liberation rather than a source of pain? For many people, relationships, especially romantic ones, become a stage for drama, attachment, expectations, and conflict. But Tolle invites us to see them from an entirely different angle. That a relationship can be a spiritual path in itself. The chapter begins by deconstructing the popular romantic idea that there is someone out there who will complete you, and that you won't be happy until you find them. This idea, he says, is the first doorway to suffering. Why? Because it arises from an inner lack, from the belief that something outside of you will give you peace. But when you rely on another to fill an inner emptiness, you are not loving, you are clinging. And clinging is always conditional and fearful. Imagine a relationship that begins with passion, then after a few months becomes filled with anger, jealousy, silence, and conflict. Not necessarily because the other person changed, but because the expectations were built on an illusion that another person would save me from myself. Here, Tolle introduces the core idea of the chapter. Every relationship shows you what you haven't seen in yourself. The partner is not just a companion, they are a mirror to your old wounds, your emotional lack, your unconscious patterns. That's why when conflict arises, it's not a problem, but a chance to look honestly within. But what makes a relationship enlightened? The answer is both simple and profound. Presence. When both people are present, not lost in their past or in their mind's expectations, they are able to see each other clearly, to listen without defensiveness,
to feel without fear of losing control. In an enlightened relationship, you do not try to possess the other, but you meet them in the space between you, where each of you is free yet connected. A real-life example. Imagine two partners. One feels rejected because the other didn't reply to a message. The mind starts, "He doesn't care. Maybe he lost interest. What did I do wrong?" But if this person is present, they'll recognize, this feeling isn't new. I've felt it many times since childhood. This is an old wound returning. Instead of blaming, they breathe, observe, and share their feelings without accusation. And here, the relationship becomes a space for healing. Tolle emphasizes that this does not mean only challenge-free relationships are successful. On the contrary, deep relationships are tested. But presence, acceptance, and honesty are what turn them into a field for growth, not a battlefield. And he stresses an important point. Do not wait for the other person to be conscious before you begin. Presence starts with the individual, and through you it may extend to the other, or not. But what matters is not to lose yourself in unconscious dynamics. In the end, Tolle reminds us that true love does not mean needing the other, but seeing them, giving them space to be, and meeting one another in a moment that is silent, honest, real, beyond stories, beyond ego.
Chapter 9. Beyond happiness and unhappiness, there is peace. In this chapter, Tolle opens a new doorway in our awareness. We waste our lives chasing happiness and running from unhappiness. But what if happiness and unhappiness are two sides of the same coin? And what if true peace is not born from either, but from going beyond both? Reflect on this moment. How many times have you felt happy and then suddenly lost it? A small success, a beautiful relationship, a big achievement. Joy arises. Then, a simple event, a disappointment, a delay, a word, and it all disappears. Happiness, as we know it, is often built on external circumstances. When things go as I want, I feel good, and when they don't, I suffer. Here, Tolle offers a precise diagnosis. Happiness that is tied to things, to events, to people, is unstable, because it is based on a changing world. But there is something deeper, something that does not fluctuate with events. Tolle calls it inner peace. And this peace doesn't arise because everything is perfect, but because it does not depend on external perfection at all. How do we reach it? The answer repeats, as in every chapter of this book: presence. When you are fully present in the now, you are not thinking about the past, you are not expecting the future, you are not comparing, you are not resisting, you are not living your mood, but your being. And this presence, in its simplicity, gives rise to a strange feeling: stillness, ease, acceptance. Not loud joy, not deep sadness, but a quiet, silent, full calm. A simple example. You're walking down a quiet street, not thinking about anything. You feel okay, for no reason. There's no event that made you happy, but you are at ease. This ease is peace, and it's not a fleeting feeling, but the original state of your awareness when it stops struggling.
Tolle reminds us that the mind loves constant evaluation. Am I happy? Is this good? Do I deserve more? But peace doesn't need evaluation. It is nothing, and yet everything. And the deep paradox is that the one who lives in this peace can receive happiness without clinging and unhappiness without resistance, because their core does not change. In relationship, in loss, in joy, in failure, you remain connected to a still root within you. That root is the now. And in a moment you realize you don't need to become something, or achieve something, or understand everything, but only to be here. And here, beyond happiness and unhappiness, peace.
Chapter 10. The Meaning of Surrender. The word surrender may trigger in our minds feelings of weakness or defeat. But in this chapter, Tolle reveals that true surrender does not mean giving up your power. Rather, it means discovering the true power that appears only when you stop resisting. Think of this example. You're stuck in heavy traffic. You're late, frustrated, hitting the steering wheel. Everything in you resists the moment. I should be there already. This isn't fair. But does that change anything? The traffic continues, and all that's happened is that you've added inner pain to the outer situation. This is exactly where Tolle invites you to surrender. But wait, surrender here doesn't mean giving in to the traffic, but to stop creating inner suffering because of it. To say to yourself, this is how the moment is, and I will be fully in it without conflict. Surrender, as Tolle describes it, is the complete acceptance of the present moment as it is, without saying it should be different. This doesn't mean you can't change your situation if you're able to, but that you move from peace, not from resistance. Another deeper example. Someone goes through loss. A relationship ends, a job is lost, a dream collapses. The mind begins, why? This isn't fair. I don't deserve this. It keeps replaying the story, complaining, building expectations. But the loss has already happened. And here, instead of drowning in the mind's narratives, you can simply say, I don't understand everything right now, but I choose not to resist what is. And this is the essence of surrender. Not surrender to circumstances, but surrender to the depth of life itself. A quiet trust that what is happening now is part of a greater path, even if it doesn't yet appear so. Tolle clarifies that surrender does not mean passivity. On the contrary, the person who truly surrenders becomes more effective, more present, because they no longer waste energy in mental struggle. They do what needs to be done without carrying the burden of how things should be. In the moment you surrender, you feel something inside you relax, as if you stopped pushing a boulder up the mountain and instead sat down, looked at it, and smiled. And here the shift happens, from a busy, resisting mind to a clear awareness that observes and trusts. True surrender frees you from the past, dissolves your fear of the future, and places you fully in the lap of the now, in a space where you don't need to understand everything, but simply be open to it. And in this state of deep acceptance, you discover that what you were resisting was never the real problem. Your resistance was. And there suffering ends. And at the end of this journey, with every idea and every moment we've reflected on together, it becomes clear that the power of now is not just a book title, but a true invitation to return to yourself. An invitation to stop living in the shadow of a past that can't be changed and chasing a future that hasn't yet been born. An invitation to plant your feet firmly in the ground of the present moment and to feel that you are alive, whole, and enough, just as you are. Maybe the world around you won't change quickly, but when your consciousness shifts, everything begins to look different. The same people, the same circumstances, the same pressures and demands, but something within you has become quieter, less in need of proving, less afraid of loss, more in love with life, just as it is. Maybe you won't reach perfection, but that was never the goal. The goal is to live the moment with honesty, to see, to listen, to feel, without judgment, to live from within, not to be consumed by the fluctuations of the external. The power of now is not just an idea to reflect on, but a practice that begins now. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I present? Am I resisting something? Can I simply be? If you can find within your heart a space for presence, even for just one moment, then you have begun. And from here, freedom begins.
Every great mind starts with a single page, and you've just turned one. If this chapter's moved you, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe, hit the bell, and unlock the next idea. Keep listening, keep growing.